Why are we talking about alcohol as a warning for your health when we haven't even banned seed oils yet? We'll be talking about this and more on this episode. So there was a recent update touching a bit on alcohol, maybe not being the healthiest thing for us, maybe giving us a little bit of a warning, but the comment section was a little bit upset that we haven't banned seed oils yet first.
A little bit.
The comment section was honestly so disappointing. There's this thing nowadays. I've heard someone refer to it as like whataboutism, where anytime someone brings up some kind of statement or post, we have this tendency to go, well, what about this? And I feel like that's exactly what happened with all of the posts that I saw about the Surgeon General calling for cancer warnings on alcohol, which, like cigarettes, the warning label that's on cigarettes that like may cause cancer. Now they're saying Surgeon General's warning should be on alcohol. We have sufficient enough evidence to see that alcohol has a causal link, not just correlation, a causal link between multiple different types of cancers. Let's put the warning label on there. Now, whether that warning label actually deters anyone, I don't know. I think if you want to smoke cigarettes, wouldn't recommend it, but that warning label probably isn't really stopping anyone if they're already buying them. But that's not even the point. The point is this specific comment section that we were chatting about a little bit was very like, okay, well, what about processed food? What about fast food? What about seed oils? What about artificial dyes? And it's like, I just feel like that detracts from the conversation. And I know when we talked about dyes weeks and weeks ago, we had this, one of your sort of like counterpoints, Josh, was like, maybe it at least gets the conversation started. And this is where I feel like getting the conversation started on the quote wrong thing or the wrong place to start is exactly where we see this now present itself. We're talking about a huge rock here. Alcohol, we know, is cancer causing. We know that limiting alcohol is beneficial for our health. Not consuming it altogether is even better for our health. And it used to even be believed that it was like, oh, if you had like 1 to 2 glasses of wine per night, it was healthy. Now it's been shown that there is not any amount of alcohol that is a healthy amount of alcohol. It should not be had. It is a known actual toxin, not just like what this day and age of like calling everything toxic. It is an actual toxin. It is actual poison. And
For those who are unfamiliar with the actual study and the graph that they're showing, like 0 to 2, there's positive correlations. They don't take into account the fact that those who are drinking 0 to 2 already have pre-existing comorbidities, so they are more unhealthy, which is why it shows like you may be more healthy with that 0 to 2 range. So all of your favorite influencers are posting, oh, my 2, drinks of scotch per night, this is actually good for me. They're not actually factoring those things into account.
And some of the comments too are like this one comment says, funny enough, that I'm not going to give their full username, but wine mama is in the username. I'll just leave it at that. But the comment is, will everyone stop the damn war on alcohol? I'm getting so sick of this. And it's like, what? But like, that is probably the same person who is complaining about artificial food dyes or seed oils. And it's like, but you don't want to give up the mommy wine culture, or like, you don't want to give up your daily glass of wine. And when we actually come out and say, hey, this is a known carcinogen, there is no nuance here. Like, there is no nuance about alcohol. There's a lot of context and nuance required on seed oils, food dyes, etc. There is not, like, alcohol is not a nuanced conversation. It is poisonous. It is carcinogenic. End of story. And people are so mad.
It makes sense in a lot of ways. I just looked up what the alcohol industry makes. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So I think last year, or 2022, $260 billion in sales in the U.S. alone. So just to kind of put that in perspective. But Josh, you said something. You said your favorite influencer posting that they have their 2 drinks of whiskey per night. Heavy alcohol intake, I think it's 7 drinks per week for women, and it might be double that for men. It might be 14 for men. But when you look at what an actual drink is, like
Oh
a
yeah,
lot
it's
of
like
people are filling up a glass of
1 ounce.
wine. That's easily 3 actual glasses of wine. I think it's 5 ounces of wine, 1 ounce of what, hard alcohol.
Yeah,
I
I think
don't.
it's 1 ounce.
Um,
I think wine is 5 ounces, 4 or 5 ounces, and like hard alcohol is 1 ounce.
but just like with nutrition, like if you were to measure it out actually, as far as like weighing out an ounce or weighing out 5 ounces, you would be, it's like the peanut butter thing. Like you ever scoop a tablespoon of peanut butter and then actually weigh it out and you're super disappointed. It is the same thing. So people are over consuming even when they think they're consuming it moderately. But the whole mommy wine culture thing, I could go off on a whole tangent on this. It really, it's twofold. I think moms are targeted
Yeah.
because they are seen as this inferior, struggling human, and they know that somebody pushing, oh, just relax with a glass of wine or just have a glass of wine every night after the kids go to bed, you'll feel so much better. What happens when your kids grow up seeing you, like you see all those memes that they're also posting, like, oh, I need a glass of wine to get through the day with my kids, or like things like that. I posted a reel a while back. I just remembered the one I posted, Joelle, about like mommy doesn't drink. Well, I don't remember what I said. I'll have to pull it up. But it's just, it's a cop out, I think.
I also
Honestly.
just think it's almost the not even the important part of the conversation. Like if moms are feeling so drawn to alcohol to cope with life, then we need to talk about better support for moms.
Yes,
Like at the end of the
absolutely.
day, it's maybe that person, maybe that mom, wife, whoever is not feeling supported. Maybe that person does not have, you know, a friends nearby or family nearby or someone to talk to or other ways to cope, and somehow alcohol became the way that moms are supposed to cope.
The
And that
immediate thing.
right, like that has become normalized, and I think that's what we're saying like shouldn't be so normalized, but I think it's not that the wine is the problem, it's that the wine is the solution to whatever
Right.
problem the mom is struggling with, or you know, that's where I'm like, well, then we need to talk about better support for the mom. You know, whether that's whatever, financial support or social support or any spousal support, whatever it is. But the wine is not a great solution, obviously, or like coping with alcohol is not a great solution. But I agree that it has become just normalized for that to be the coping strategy for women,
Like
which is
step
not helping
one, if you're
anything.
overwhelmed and if you're stressed, go drink some wine. Like that's
Right.
just become the first step when it should not even exist on the list.
Couple things I want to jump in with. You mentioned heavy drinking kind of starting at that 7 drink per week mark for women. I just found I just
Insane.
pulled this up because I know I had just read it. I don't know if this is the one I saw before, but according to the Dietary Guidelines for Americans, DGA, moderate drinking is 1 drink or less per day for women, no more than 7 drinks per week. 2 drinks or less per day for men, no more than 14 drinks per week. So
Like I
on
can't.
one side of things, that's moderate. On the other side, that's heavy drinking. So I can't imagine 14 drinks a week on a regular basis, but I know that's the norm. You come home, you have a couple beers after work, you have a glass of wine, a couple glasses of wine, and that's something that happens on a regular basis, which is
Yep.
you want to talk about food dyes and seed oils. Like if you're doing that, guess what? Nothing else matters.
Nothing else
That
is going to help you.
that moderate drinking, quote unquote, it's first of all, it's not moderate. Second of all, there is no amount of seed oils you're going to cut out that is going to have as big of an effect as cutting that down to 0 to 2 per week. It's not a thing. So for
Yep.
those who are looking to die on that hill, like find another one. Now to circle back on, we talked about the food dyes a couple weeks ago, like you said, Joelle, and I said it's great to start the conversation. It doesn't need to be the thing. There are so many other rocks to move that are certainly a lot bigger. And this is why, like, I've been a fan of RFK. We've talked about this. I don't get political, but like I like the mentality he had as far as like trying to make things better. Trying to bring things back and taking care of the citizens on an individual basis. I will say, if we are now dying on it, if we're all together dying on that, let's remove seed oils, let's remove food dyes, and we don't forget the alcohol. Like, don't put that in the bottle. Like, you are shifting it in an entirely wrong perspective. those are the tiny things at the top of the hill. You talk about a pyramid, that's like the last little triangle at the very top.
Right.
If we aren't focused on the bigger things, the bigger rocks at the bottom, that shit literally does not matter one bit. Not 1% is not going to affect you if you're doing all these other things wrong. So if it's just easier to blame things that you have no control over, like I understand it, but you need to work through that personally. This can't be a coping mechanism. If you are really serious about improving your health, about living longer, about feeling better, about being confident again, you need to focus on all the big things first, and then you level up to the next step and the next step. And then if you want to talk about seed oils and food dyes as the very last thing, and do some research and, trial it on yourself and on your kids. If you take that out, do you notice a big difference in how you feel and in behavior?
Yeah.
And hopefully some more data comes out in the future that's less biased or, more specific. But you need to start with the basics things we've been talking about for years. The basics never stopped working. If you don't have those things down, you don't have to worry about the rest.
I saw a post. Sorry, Joel, I interrupted you. I just wanted to squeeze this in. I do think the conversation is shifting when it comes to like just being on TikTok and looking at teenagers and Generation Z. What's the new one? Alpha. No, is Alpha younger than Z? Yeah, there's a new one this year.
I don't know.
I don't know. Anyway,
I thought
I
Gen Z was youngest.
I do think the conversation is shifting. Like, not as many teens seem to be as obsessed with it as I feel like my generation was, which could or could not be the fact that their parents just aren't drinking as much.
Is that more to do with everyone just taking microdoses of mushrooms now?
I was gonna say,
maybe
well, now weed is a lot
maybe
more
it's being
legal
replaced. Yeah. But I saw a post, and I don't know the other half of the post, but it started off by saying, like, a mom posted it, obviously, of teens that said, "Do not serve my teen alcohol when she comes to your house." And it went on and like talked about other stuff too. But I was reading the comments on that post, and I cannot tell you how many young adults in our age people commented saying that they had their first drink at a party at someone else's house in high school, which is probably the case for most of us listening here, and how that spiraled into an addiction for them. And they weren't at an age where they understood fully the effect of drinking alcohol and what, just was passed down from their family as far as family history goes and addiction. And it caused them to spiral from that one drink that was served by an adult having a party for teenagers at their house. So I would hope that there is a shift happening. I feel like there is. And I've said this since we stopped drinking 10 years ago. Like, you have to view alcohol as the new cigarette almost, because that's in my mind, that's what it is. And I do believe we will get to a point where it is treated like how cigarettes are treated now. Like, yeah, there's still people who smoke, but it is far less than it used to be. But the comment section of the post that you're referring to, Joelle, was just super disappointing. And I hope that was a more rare response. But I do think there is a slight shift happening that I'm personally seeing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, and I also think, like, I have a bunch of younger cousins. Like, there's 12 of us grandchildren, and my brother and I are the oldest of the 12. So we range from, my brother is 34, and the youngest she's in her first year of college, like 18, 19. And all of our cousins who are in that, and Josh, I think your sister is in this too, but that like 18 to 24-ish range, they don't really drink. I don't think the way that we drank in high school and college. I mean, Josh, you were like your own breed of drinking. we can't even include you. You're skewing the data too.
I got one of the extremities.
But I do
Outliers.
think, like, a few years ago, I had realized, like, a lot of those cousins, maybe I'm just outing my cousins here, but a lot of them were like not really drinking. They were smoking weed, which I'm not necessarily saying that that's a better option, but I think that there's also been this big shift from alcohol to weed as well.
But I think you do see, like, on menus at every restaurant we've been to, there's mocktails now. Like, that wasn't a thing before. There's what do they call them? Sober bars, or like, I don't know if that's the official term, but like, there's places you can go to like hang out with people and they don't serve alcohol there. That feels like a bar. So I think there are things happening that are helping us make this transition a little bit easier, but you know, it's still obviously a huge problem for a lot of
Well,
people.
there is a big shift. Uh, Tatum Brant Creative, she's been posting about this for a while. But like they're instead of going to these clubs, like the new quote unquote nightlife, social life has been these wellness meetups. There are these ultra races and they have these, you know, big
Run
festivals.
clubs.
Yeah, run clubs, things like that. Even like Tough Mudder, like you have your beer at the end, but things like that where you're meeting, you're engaging that community, and there is this shift towards wellness. Now, is it for everybody? Probably not, but there is definitely some momentum building in the other direction, which is cool to see. I hope it's not all just going to drugs. I hope you know it is people who are just trying to live the sober lifestyle and live long, happy, healthy. We have a couple more we're going to dive into, but just as far as like our perspective in our households, as Joel kind of alluded to, we've talked about a little bit. I was a very heavy drinker really my last year in high school, and then my first couple years in college before I physically could not drink
High
anymore.
school? You were drinking that much in high school?
So
I
was I.
one Yeah, I showed up to a party
Gee.
late one time and basically chugged a bottle of vodka, and that was the first time I probably had alcohol poisoning. So I spent the next 3 hours just sitting at the sink, throwing my brains out.
I was blackout drunk almost every weekend in high school starting sophomore year.
That's
It was
insane.
it was
So
an
I did
absurdity.
accidentally get alcohol poisoning in like 10th grade, and then I didn't drink again.
Accidentally.
Yeah, it's kind of I can tell you the story if you want, but long story short, I was at a party, ninth or 10th grade, at a party drinking some disgusting beer, like Natty Light or something awful. And we were playing a card game of some sorts. And just whenever my drink was getting lower, unbeknownst to me, someone was just sticking a new beer in front of me. And so for like a long time of us sitting and playing whatever game we were playing, I thought I was drinking the same drink. And turns out I had drank like 8 or so beers and was like 90 pounds. And I was so sick. I ended up throwing up all over my friend's house. They were like, "You got to call your mom to pick you up because you're going to get us in trouble." Like I was mortified. I called my
You
mom
were
like
that
2 in the
girl.
morning. Yup. Definitely was. And called my mom like 2 in the morning, like, "Can you come pick me up? I think I have food poisoning." My mom, she knew. Like she totally knew, but she was like, "Okay, like let's go home. It's okay." And I was terrified. Like I was convinced I was going to die. And my mom kept, and I'm shaking, I'm throwing up, I'm like not okay. And she's like, if you're this sick, maybe we should go to the hospital. And I was like, no. I was like so afraid the hospital would like arrest me, put me in jail. Like I'm 15. I had no concept of like what the consequences would actually be. I'm like, no, it's fine. It's just the penne alla vodka. I think it got me sick. Like it's just whatever. Like it's just food
It
poisoning.
was the vodka. You forgot the penne alla.
Yeah, it was just right, totally the not the vodka part. So anyway, I got really sick, but that scared the shit out of me, and I was like, I'm never drinking again, and I really didn't until like my freshman year, but I would say of college. So like the next 3 years, I didn't touch alcohol the rest of high school, and then my first year of college, I drank on the weekends, but like 2 drink max. Like I was never getting blackout drunk sort of thing. And then by my second year of college, I was full blown anorexic. So I was not consuming alcohol anymore. So I had a very like short lived experience with alcohol as it was, but I was never like, other than that one accidental alcohol poisoning situation, I was never getting regularly blackout drunk, and now I haven't drank in I don't know years.
Yeah, I also had a short drinking span. Like up until it was probably junior year, like my closest group of friends, we were all we wouldn't drink, we wouldn't smoke. And then my closest friends like came home high one night and we were all like, what the fuck we were all tearing them up. Like, what are you doing? Within 3 weeks, we're all smoking weed. So I smoked before I drank. And then
Peer
I just,
pressure. That's how it
The
works.
gateway
exactly.
drug, right? Don't they say that weed is the gateway drug to
Well, it
like
didn't take us
doing
to any
other
other
things?
drugs, but yeah,
Yeah.
we were doing a lot of drinking a lot, smoking a lot. But yeah, I drank more since junior year of probably junior year high school to college. I drank more in that period than most people do in their entire lives. But to where I was going with all this, and that's a story
Yeah,
for another
sorry.
day. But
Sorry for that side tangent.
no, it's
Get to
it's
know
all
Joelle a
it's
little
people
better.
want to relate. They want to relate to it. With Kai, with Cora, with our soon to be here son, it's not going to be the norm to drink. And I'll have those conversations with them. Like, we don't drink anymore. It's not in this household. It will never be in this household. You know, we used to drink. Here's what it did to me. It broke my body, made me stupid. I had to wake up I was blackout drunk 4 or 5 days a week in college. And like, what do I have to apologize for today? What did I do last night? It's just it was a sickness in my family. Addiction, it runs strong. And I have a lot of cousins who have been affected by serious drugs and alcoholism. And our kids are going to know that. Like, you know, when you're an adult, when you're in this house, there's no fucking way. But when you're an adult, you're going to make your own decisions. Here is why we no longer do these things. You know, I'm going to love you no matter what. But I highly recommend that you don't take this path.
Yeah, we take a very honest approach even now with our kids. I feel like Kai, with him being closer to 6, like, we're very open about a lot of things. And I think that's something we're just going to continue, especially when it comes to these harder conversations. But I do believe not having it in the house is step one. Like, that's a part of the process. And, you know, I think the other side of that, this could probably be a whole episode too, is just they also will not be on social media until they are probably 18. Under this roof, maybe not ever here. But that's a conversation we'll have together. And I don't care if that makes them the uncool kid, but I think that opens up a lot of doors as far as exposure and getting in with the wrong crowds. And just even personally, like, I remember we were really the first generation that had social media. It was MySpace, it was Facebook eventually, but MySpace and AIM.
I also feel like we were the last generation who didn't get completely fucked by it.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, I feel like I recall times where like bullying started and like girls would be so mean to me on social media, and like it would just start this whole, like, I became obsessed with like hanging out with the popular girls and like making new friends in high school. And like, yeah, you want to make friends, but like I feel like that sort of catapulted me into the wrong crowd. Half of which is no longer living today from high school, which is super sad. But
really,
I mean, oh yeah, yep, like at least 6 people in the friend group that I was regularly drinking with. So I'm very grateful I got out of that group and kind of got my crap together in college. But I think it all started with just the obsession with MySpace and like talking to people online. And like, my parents didn't know. They just had no idea. This was all new to them too. So anyway, that's my rant. But we're very open with our kids is what I wanted to get at.
We might use an iPod in a car ride or things like that, but like our kids don't have free, I mean, granted, my kids are babies right now, but like there will not be free range of the internet. No. And I know that that's probably like, you might be listening to this if you have older kids and be like, easier said than done. And I'm sure that's true. I'm sure it is easier said than done. And when you have a 14 or 15-year-old like begging that her friends get to do this, and like, I'm sure it's hard in those moments, but we have seen the other side and have been on the other side of what it can do. And like, there's just no amount of anything that's obviously, like, you can't shelter your kids forever, but like while you are in this house, mom and dad call the shots about what you're going to be exposed to in this house.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for me going through it, because I know, like, I've been there. I've been through it. I don't need you to tell me just wait until, like, no, like, as somebody who has been on that side, they will not have access to that. And I don't care whose friend, like, I used to be the girl that would say, oh, but so-and-so is getting a cell phone this year. And, you know, like, I was that person. And, you know,
my kids are getting flip phones.
Right.
They're getting flip phones that can like call us and maybe text us, but like, you're not getting
no.
Nope.
Absolutely.
No iPhone for
flip
you.
phones.
Sorry.
And probably an AirTag in the butt cheek in case anybody gets lost.
GPS tracker in the back of their neck.
I know where the fuck you are. Nice
Josh
try.
is gonna have that camera on Kai till he's 18.
Oh my
He's
God,
18.
the baby monitor.
The baby monitor.
Dad, this is weird. I don't care. Go to sleep. Put your phone down. Go to
Privacy
sleep.
in here. I'm 18 now.
And honestly, like jokes aside, a lot of the stuff we do might be viewed as extreme. Like
Yeah.
we are, I mean, we're very flexible, but at the same time, we're very rigid. We're very regimented, and it's just the shit that we know has worked for us. It's worked for our kids. We have awesome kids. We have awesome dogs. We do a lot of things, not toot our own horns. We do things the right way, and we are probably overcautious to that extent. So yes, we're faulted in some regards because of that.
Yeah.
We have difficult conversations with our parents, like they're going to do this, they're not going to do that. I don't want you doing this again. I don't want you doing that again. It is what it is. Like I like how things are going, and until we are, veered off that path, that's the way we're going to continue. But to that same point, like the concept of normal and extreme has become so skewed. So if you guys haven't picked up, probably not because we've gone into one thing today, but
We've taken this lots of different directions.
the topic is essentially a lot of the dumb shit that we're reading on the internet, in the comments, in posts, and whatever. And the next one is being healthy shouldn't be viewed as the extreme, but because the opposite is now the norm, being healthy is the extreme. So you get comments from people talking about being like, bullied in a sense for being the health nut, in a joking way, but at the same time makes you uncomfortable. Being the health nut for waking up at 5 a.m., being part of 5 a.m. gym club, for taking the stairs.
Shaming.
You had a comment, Joel, about the person who was at work on the standing desk, and the workspace provided the desks, but the
Provides
person using it
walking-
actually
yeah,
got hit on
desk.
for it. Not hit on,
Yep.
but
Yeah, she was saying that her work space provides treadmill desks, and so she uses it, and that people are always, making sly comments to her and whatever, and that it's specifically the women, like the people at the office. They know she works out. They know she likes to get her steps in and do her workouts before she comes to work. And like the male coworkers will come in and like chat about workouts with her and like what she's doing at the gym. And it's the women who are like making fun of her, which I also just, Alessandra, you and I have talked about that too. Like it tracks, unfortunately, for like the fit shaming, especially in women.
Even mom to mom. It's
Yep.
always other moms that will shame you. It's not ever anybody else. But you
Yep.
know what? I've learned being on social media, for sharing my life on social media for over 10 years now. It's all projection. It's all people say comments like that and bully other adults, because that's what it is. Like you're bullying someone because they are uncomfortable with that idea, because they don't think that they could ever do that, or they think it's so unrealistic, and it makes them feel very uncomfortable because they're struggling in that area in some way. So that's all I'll say about that.
We talked about that a little bit on the last podcast of, you posting something that feels unattainable to someone else, and you're trying to show like, hey, you are capable. And they're like, no, you are setting unrealistic expectations. And like, again, that's you projecting. And that's like, if it doesn't resonate, fine. Maybe that doesn't work for you in this chapter of life. But also, you're bullying. And like, if it doesn't serve you, just again, scroll past it, move on. But it's like, we wonder why kids can be such bullies and so mean. And then you have a crusade of bullies on social media. And you're like, because the parents are bullies. And then they're probably raising bully kids because the parents don't model kindness to people.
Well, here's another component. So I know a lot of this you guys mentioned is the female aspect. Personally seeing, as health coaches, lack of spousal support, and especially just getting started. The idea of signing up for coaching, and this isn't a dig like if finances are actually an issue, but like, no, you don't need that. This is stupid. The idea of one spouse improving themselves for the goal of feeling better, having more confidence, progressing in life. That other person, if they're not at the stage where they're ready to do similar things and progress and move forward, and they feel stuck, they not only just don't support that spouse, but they actually give them those digs along the way. Oh, that's not going to work. Why are you doing this? This is stupid.
Or try to purposely sabotage them.
Sabotage them. This isn't working. You look exactly the same. Why are you doing these things? And we've had, documented success. Clients who have seen great results, weight-wise, progress pictures, all these things, feeling better, and their spouse continues to put them down because they feel like they're being left in the dust. So it's a very regular thing. If you deal with that, I feel for you. I apologize. And that's a conversation to have with your spouse. That is a character flaw. But it's common. It's normal. It's not because you're doing anything wrong, female to female, relationship wise. It's because that person feels poorly about themselves.
Yep.
There was a funny post I came across. I think you liked it, Joelle, because I was going to send it to you and I was like, oh, sure, I liked it. But it was a reel, and it was like showing a conversation between like a coach or like somebody offering services to someone else. And their reason for not sending up was, oh, my husband doesn't support this. And the coach wrote back, okay, I'm going to send you a few other options that we can work on together. And she sent her just a few other options
It was like
of
dating
husbands.
profiles.
It was dating profiles. Here are your other options of someone who will actually support you. I was laughing though, because it was relevant. I mean, it made sense in my mind.
I don't think my husband says we can't swing this, and she's like, okay, I'll send you other options. And so
other men.
She sends over pictures of other men and their age and like their dating profiles as like not other options for coaching, other options for husbands, because like screw that guy.
Ain't working.
Yeah. But yeah, I think spousal support is a big issue, and for some people, unfortunately, and it's always hard as a coach to be on the other side of that too, where you have a client telling you about that and you're like, I just want to shake your spouse a little and like talk some sense into them, because you're like, this person needs support. And a lot of where we get that support is our very close circles, which is typically our marriage and like our parents, our kids, our siblings. And that was the other thing I was going to say too, is, we've had clients in the past who are maybe not married yet, but they maybe still live at home with their parents, and their parents don't get it, or their parents are like, you're 3 months in and you've only lost 5 pounds. Don't you think you should have lost more by now? Or like just making comments like that. And you're like, that's not helpful. How does someone see that comment as even potentially helpful? It's not helpful. Which, I mean, again, totally kind of different side tangent there, but we know that support in terms of making progress and maintaining progress, that social support is actually a really, really big part of making and maintaining progress. And so, all of that to say, obviously, I'm not saying just like go divorce your spouse if they don't support you.
Unless you need to.
But I mean, it's maybe sometimes. But I will say with that, audit your social circle. Like, who are you surrounding yourself with? What are the habits that your social circle is doing, indulging in? Like, what are their behaviors and habits like? And does that align with who you are and who you want to be?
And a little side tangent, I'm going to attempt to bring it full circle. In that example you used with the unsupported parents, Joelle, you mentioned, you've only lost 5 pounds in 3 months. One thing I want to bring up, we'll hit on that, we'll bring it back. When it takes you years and years and years to develop poor habits, it is going to take you as long, if not longer, to create new ones. When it comes to years and years and years and years of hammering your body, gaining all this weight, eating all the wrong things, it is going to take you a similar, if not longer, period to overcome those things and get back to the original place and then start seeing progress. So bringing it back full circle to tie it into the support network, a part of that is purging some of those people within your circle who you have the capacity to from your circle. Starting fresh, surrounding yourself with people who either support your goals or just doing this thing on your own for a little while. As a personal development aspect, from a business aspect, like in those scenarios, we've gone through those things. We've removed people from our circle who have, they've been we've only partied with them, or, hung out when we've been drunk. You're gone. From a business aspect, if you're not supporting my goals, if you're not my biggest cheerleader, don't need to hear from you. It's all set. Keep moving forward. So as you go through this, as you kind of your life cycle of whatever aspect of your life this involves, understand it's going to take time. It's going to take sacrifices. It's going to take some serious decision making and kind of commitment to those things to actually move forward. The secret sauce to progress in any area isn't the new sexy thing you saw on Instagram, online, whatever it is. It's committing to the basic things, committing to your foundation and sticking to that long term. You could literally never track macros. Maybe you never go through an actual strength training workout regimen, whatever it is. But if you just commit to simply eating better, if you simply commit to moving your body, if you simply commit to sleeping 7 to 8 hours a night, and something to take care of your mental health, your health is going to improve. It might be very, very small increments, especially without the strength training component, but you will move forward over time. And that, like, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, it will be a night and day difference from when you decided to commit to that and started it and got to that next point. I think I brought that full circle. If I didn't, I apologize.
Preach. I was going to bring up another post and I lost it. So if we have another topic,
we got the third was
the pandemic.
pandemic, Joelle?
Yeah.
Let's read it.
I gotta find it unless someone else has it up.
It's
Hold
in
on.
our group chat.
There were a couple of things while she's looking for it that
Yeah, I
will
have it.
stand out.
Go
You
ahead.
got it? Okay. go
Yeah.
ahead.
Do you want me to jump in?
Yep.
Yeah.
So this particular, I had made a post a while ago that is randomly getting traction from a few months ago, and it was about how Josh kind of prefaced things in the beginning of the show, that we've come so far from what the basic foundational pieces of health are, like eating a vegetable and moving your body a few days a week, that those now seem extreme. Like those seem like a radical, crazy, extremist views to like want to go to the gym or eat some protein with your lunch. And so anyway, that's just to provide context on that post. It was me talking about how we've come so far from the norm that now health feels extreme or seems extreme to a lot of people. So this was a very interesting comment. This person doesn't follow me. This is like what happens when a reel starts gaining traction, is you get people from just like the depths of the corners of the internet that anyway. So this comment says, unfortunately now, because of the pandemic, those of us with children have to deal with them and all their problems. Parents don't have time for anything, for much of anything for themselves anymore. There's a lot to unpack here.
There's a lot.
For me, the biggest thing that bothered me, and Josh, you had a different pain point about this. My biggest pain point in this comments was parents don't have time for much of anything for themselves anymore. Now, I agree that parents' lives are very busy. If you work full time and you are a parent, your life is likely chaos. And it also might feel like the last thing you want to do before you start your chaotic day or to end your chaotic day is a workout. But I don't like this general grouping of parents don't have time for anything for themselves anymore. Because what you just told me is parents don't have time to take care of themselves. And as you can imagine, I would say the three of us would hard disagree with that. Again, nuance, context, yes, but there's a difference between having time and making time and owning and taking responsibility for what is a priority to you or what is not a priority to you. If it is not a priority to you, that is fine. But say that. Don't say there's no time because of the pandemic because you have to deal with your kids.
Right. There's no ownership being taken.
I've been stretching. I've been warming up for this. Hang on a second.
Okay. Let it rip, Josh.
Let it rip. First, because I want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, because I am Josh 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever I've come to from this standpoint, I would like to think that we are reading this in the wrong tone. I would like to think that it was typed out a certain way.
I was not expecting
I would like to
this.
think it was typed out a certain way and she was reading it or speaking it into your comment.
Does it change that it's a male?
It's a he. It's a he.
Yes, a little
It's
bit.
a he. Okay.
A little bit. But we'll still pretend I'm staying level-headed. Okay. I would like to pretend that it came out in a different tone that we didn't hear, obviously, through this comment, because it's text. You lose tone in text. That's just the way it goes. That being said, if you have to deal with your kids and all their problems, why the fuck are you a parent? Like, what are you talking? Your life is so constricted because you have to deal with your kids. Choose your words a little more carefully, especially as you post this on the fucking internet.
Right.
Deal with your kids. Be a fucking parent. Step the fuck up. Take care of your kids. Take care of yourself and do the fuck you got to do. I don't ever want to read you have to deal with your kids because I'm already predisposed to the concept that you view your kids as a burden. So you're probably neglecting them in several different areas. You probably are in a pretty poor mental space, and that's projecting onto them. You are ingraining your kids in that mindset that you have to deal with them, and they can feel that they are a burden to you. So step one, you start meditating. I'm going to meditate after this episode. We're going to start with that. Be grateful for your kids. Reframe everything you currently view as a burden and view it as a fucking blessing that you get to. You get to deal with your kids. You have your kids in your life, and man the fuck up.
I cannot wait for Kai to listen to this episode one day because listen, I think what you're getting at is everything that you write on the internet, you're leaving a footprint. And when you die, your kids are going to see, I mean, maybe they won't see every comment you've ever left,
but they're going to feel it their whole fucking life.
I guarantee if you're commenting that on a random post, there's probably some other shit on there that they are going to be like, your kids are going to figure out who you are when they grow up, before you die, probably. But I I agree. I was like, wait a minute, where is he going with this at first? And
Like,
then
I'm
I
giving them the
understood.
benefit of the doubt. Man up.
So in the situation that I read it, we read it in the incorrect tone. This conversation doesn't apply to you. What I just did doesn't apply to that person if we did that wrong. So don't take that as me speaking out to you. If I read that right, then you fucking listen and you sit down and you do it. If I misread that, I know that there are other people in a similar situation who feel that certain way. And you need to get yourself out of that, because you are going to find yourself in a very miserable hole, and you're not going to have a great relationship with your kids, with your family, with whatever. It always starts with you. Whatever the problem is that you feel and you're projecting out, it starts with you. So fix it. Stop looking left, right, up, and down. Stop looking for someone else to fix your problem. Fix it yourself.
I think the issue I have with it is just how this person blamed the pandemic, which it's 2025
It was 5
now.
years ago. It was
We
5
are
years ago.
5 years.
Almost 5 years ago.
Yeah. So I don't think that's a valid excuse anymore to say, like, this is happening because of the pandemic. Like, we're a little bit past that now. At least, I mean, you could have probably moved on a little bit from that. And to say that the pandemic is the reason for you having to deal with your, like, I don't know, it just feels wrong to me in a lot of ways. But that really is the one part that stuck out to me, is like,
Well, it goes back to what we talked about with the first part of this Troll the Internet podcast. It was people looking to deflect blame elsewhere. It's just a natural coping mechanism,
I guess.
I think for me, there's just such a lack of ownership in the whole comment. And this is a common theme, like lack of ownership, lack of people taking personal responsibility. And you guys know, like, I am queen of context, queen of nuance. Like, I love all the nuance and the context. Nothing is black and white. But there is this blatant disregard for personal responsibility and ownership, I think, in just like our society these days. And that's what I feel like that's the common theme of this specific comment. A, blaming the pandemic. B, I have children and I have to deal with them and their problems. Okay, that's also displacing that blame. Parents don't have time for much of anything for themselves anymore. C, also blaming something else for what you are or are not doing. And so it was like 3 separate parts of this, and each of those sentences were, I am not taking any ownership or responsibility. I am not taking any ownership or responsibility. I am not taking any ownership or responsibility. Everything that is happening to me and every habit that I have is because it's not my choice and it's not in my control. And that's where I'm like, there's a lot of fixed mindset here, bud.
Yeah.
A lot of growth mindset to work on. A lot of Casey Joey got to pull into the conversation.
You need some Casey.
Because like talk about fixed mindset. And again, like, we don't know this guy's story. To Josh's point about, like, maybe we're reading it differently. Maybe we give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you just have no clue. All we know is, because of the pandemic, those of us with children have to deal with them and all their problems. For all we know, this person, like, their spouse passed away during the pandemic, and now the children have issues because of that, because they lost their mom, and now he's a single parent trying to take, like, I can try and say, okay, we don't know the context of this situation. There might be something awful that happened, and now he does, is solo parent of his kids and all of the issues that come along with losing a parent, and now he doesn't feel like he has time for anything anymore. I'm totally fine with being able to say, hey, let's give this person the benefit of the doubt. But the way that this comment was left, again, this digital footprint of your kids potentially seeing one day that, like, you have to deal with them and you don't have time for yourself and your life is hell because of, the fact that you have to deal with your kids. There are, again, nuance, context matters, that something awful may have happened to this person. But if not, there's just a huge lack of personal responsibility here.
For sure. And going back to the last week's podcast and the Smarter Goals, we talked a lot about, thinking about positive additions you can make. So for those who think they can't do all these things because of the lack of time, okay, what are the things you want to add in? And if you were to do that, where would that go? In what part of your schedule would that, I'm not sure how I can do it, but it would have to go here. Okay, what can you take out? Are you finding yourself at the end of every day totally just blah and so drained, whatever it is? I'm having a beer, I'm watching some Netflix for 3 hours, and I'm going to sleep. Okay, for one, maybe let's not add any activity. Let's not talk about working out at the end of the day. Can you put the beer down, have some water, and read a book? And then you'll probably go to bed a little sooner. So maybe you could wake up a little earlier. So right off the bat, a couple things. Hey, I want to do this thing. Here's how I would do it. Here's what I would have to move around if this was an absolute non-negotiable. So there are ways to get around it. So as far as creating more accountability for yourself, nothing is impossible. You can audit your entire routine, on an extreme version. I can take all these negative things out. I can stop scrolling for 4 hours, and I just found X amount of time to do these certain things. And you build on those things over time. You build on the positive habits. As you create that positive momentum, you check a box. I feel really good about that. I'm more motivated to get to the next one. I want to check that next box and the next box. And that's how you create these dramatic transformations over time. But again, to kind of circle back, I know we're kind of beating the dead horse at this point, but for the benefit of the doubt, when we leave these lessons throughout these episodes, there are some that are going to come across a little more fluffy, a little bit more with the rainbows and butterflies, as we like to say around here. And there are certain aspects where you're going to need the tough love. And for those of you who respond better to the fluffy, we're going to have that for you. For those of you who occasionally, maybe you don't like the tough love, but you need it, you respond best to it, we're going to have that for you as well. So nothing that we say here, even the little rant, it's not coming from a place of hate. I'm not disgusted. It's you need to wake up, and you might have needed to hear it a certain way. So take that for what it's worth, guys. And just understand that everything is always within your control. We good?
We good.
Clear. All right. So that was our first trolling the internet episode. I think that was, I don't know.
That was fun.
Trolling
It was
the
interesting.
trolls?
Trolling the trolls. Trolling the
Let
trolls.
us know if you guys like that, or if you have things you want us to troll. Feel free to send them our way, because you
Send
can
the
comment.
comments.
You can comment on Spotify. You can DM us on Instagram. I don't think you can comment on Apple yet, but yeah, send us the topics you want us.
This
to
might
troll.
be another, that this will be another fun one for the Facebook group. You guys have been awesome. I know we took a little break from the Q&As around the holidays. We'll get those back in, but now we'll have the polls for the Q&As as well as the trolling the internet. I think that'll be a fun one to get your guys your take on. You can upvote them. We'll go from there. So if
Yeah.
you're not a part of the group, that is linked in the show notes here as well. Make sure you get into that. Our community gets first access to a lot of things. First notice, if we are doing Q&A episodes, those are the guys who get the priority. Anything else you want to leave our listeners with today? All right, where can they find you?
I'm at Alessandra Skutnik.
At Joelle Samantha.
At Josh Skutnik.
Everything else you need is linked in the show notes.